Imagine for a moment that within every woman lies a labyrinth, a vast inner world of emotion, instinct, and unseen desires. Most men will wander aimlessly through this maze, chasing illusions of attraction, mistaking beauty for connection. But the few who truly understand the secret architecture of the feminine psyche, those rare men who see not the surface, but the soul, become unforgettable. They do not seduce, they awaken. They do not possess, they resonate. Every emotional attachment begins not with charm nor with words, but with resonance, the subtle vibration of two unconscious minds recognizing each other. When a man understands the archetypes that govern a woman's inner world, the lover, the mother, the child, the queen, he learns to speak the language of emotion, not logic. And that is where true power begins. The first trigger is presence, not attention, but the raw magnetic stillness that tells her she is seen beyond her masks. Most men fidget to impress. The awakened man waits in silence. In that silence, her soul leans closer. The second is mystery. The unconscious adores what it cannot fully grasp. Reveal enough to spark curiosity, but never enough to be contained. A woman's psyche thrives in tension, the dance between revelation and restraint. Too much exposure kills the magic. Too much distance starves it. The third is purpose. A man without direction breeds no trust. The feminine seeks the masculine current that moves with certainty through chaos. When your life radiates purpose, she feels safe surrendering her emotion to your orbit. The fourth is emotional unpredictability. Not chaos, but depth. When your emotions are textured, when you can be strong yet vulnerable, calm yet passionate, you mirror the rhythm of her own nature. And in that mirror, she finds herself. The fifth trigger is validation through contrast. Do not flatter endlessly. Instead, challenge her illusions gently. Awaken her growth. The unconscious craves transformation more than comfort. The man who helps her evolve earns emotional devotion that no compliment could buy. The sixth is empathy, but not weakness. True empathy is the ability to understand her pain without drowning in it. When you can hold her darkness without judgment, she feels a sacred recognition that her chaos is safe with you. The seventh is symbolic intimacy. Words fade, but gestures, small, intentional, archetypal, penetrate the subconscious. The way you look at her when she speaks, the pause before you touch her hand, these become psychic imprints, echoes she cannot forget. The eighth trigger is detachment from outcome. When she feels that your world does not collapse without her, paradoxically she leans in closer. The unconscious interprets non-neediness as strength, and strength as desirability. The ninth is authentic vulnerability, not confessions for sympathy, but the courage to reveal your humanity. A man who hides nothing from himself radiates a power that commands emotional intimacy without demand. And the final trigger, the mirror of destiny. Make her feel that meeting you was not coincidence but convergence. When you reflect back to her the deeper purpose of her existence, when you become a catalyst for her awakening, her heart binds itself to yours beyond logic, beyond time. Understand this, these are not tricks of manipulation, but mirrors of truth. Every woman is a universe seeking reflection. Every man who learns these principles becomes more than a lover. He becomes a vessel through which the feminine feels her own infinite depth. So do not chase emotion. Evoke it. Do not seek attachment. Deserve it. The psyche does not respond to force. It responds to recognition. And once a woman feels truly seen, she does not merely fall in love. She remembers who she is, and she anchors that remembrance in you presence. It is the first and most potent trigger of all. Not the shallow kind of attention that men often confuse with interest, but the deep magnetic stillness that emanates from a man who is. A woman's psyche, though complex and mysterious, has an almost instinctual sensitivity to presence. She feels it before she sees it. In a crowded room, her unconscious will register the man who does not chase, does not perform, but simply exists with grounded awareness. His energy does not reach outward to grasp. It draws inward like gravity. This is not charisma. It is psychological power born of self-possession. Most men move through life as if they are constantly seeking permission to be seen. They fidget, explain, overtalk, decorate themselves with borrowed confidence. Their energy leaks in every direction. But presence is the opposite. It is containment, energy that is aware of itself, restrained, deliberate, quiet in its certainty. And because it is rare, it becomes intoxicating. The feminine unconscious recognizes it as a signal of safety and strength, an echo of the archetypal masculine principle that grounds the world. Carl Jung often spoke of the masculine as the force of consciousness that illuminates the unknown. When a man embodies this illumination, not through dominance but through awareness, he unconsciously mirrors the woman's own inner masculine, her animus. This recognition creates a powerful resonance. She feels seen not by his eyes but by his being. In his stillness, she feels her own mind soften, her defenses tremble, her inner voice grow quiet. That is the moment emotional attachment begins, not through words or actions, but through the silent communication of presence. Sexual energy plays a hidden role here as well. True presence carries erotic weight because it contains desire without the need to discharge it. The man who can feel his desire without letting it control him becomes magnetically attractive. His sexuality is not scattered or desperate. It is focused, integrated, disciplined. A woman senses this containment instinctively. It speaks to the most ancient part of her psychology, the place where desire and safety coexist. She feels that he could take her, but chooses to wait. That paradox of restraint and readiness ignites her emotional fascination. Philosophically, presence is also a confrontation with the self. To be present is to stand in the immediacy of experience without flinching. It means to feel the weight of existence, the uncertainty, the impermanence, and remain unshaken. When a man reaches that state, he ceases to react. He begins to respond. This difference is subtle but profound. A reactive man mirrors chaos. A responsive man mirrors order. The feminine, ever drawn toward polarity, naturally seeks the balance of her own emotional storms within his grounded frame. Presence also dismantles illusion. When you are fully there, your mind silent, your attention unfragmented, you see through the masks others wear. You sense the words that are not spoken, the emotions that ripple beneath the surface. A woman will test this, often unconsciously. She might challenge your composure, provoke or withdraw simply to see if you remain intact. If your presence falters, she feels you are not what you appear to be. But if your stillness endures, she begins to trust, not because you passed a test, but because your energy proved consistent with your essence. This is the secret of emotional authority, the ability to remain internally anchored while others are swept away by their emotions. Jung would call this the integration of the shadow, the capacity to face the chaotic, instinctual parts of oneself without repression or fear. The man who has met his own darkness can hold space for the darkness of another. And when he directs that awareness toward a woman, she feels, perhaps for the first time, that she does not need to hide. Her vulnerability awakens not from weakness, but from recognition. Presence, then, is not something you perform, it is something you become. It is born from solitude, from honest self-confrontation, from living in alignment with what you truly value. When you walk into a room carrying that kind of consciousness, it speaks louder than any words. It is the silent declaration, I am here. I am whole. I am not looking to complete myself through you. And paradoxically, that is what makes her want to merge with you. So cultivate presence not as a tactic, but as a philosophy of being. Turn your attention inward, master your impulses, and observe the world without rushing to change it. When your energy becomes still enough, it begins to move others. That is the first law of attraction. Not manipulation, not charm, but authenticity so profound that it transforms the emotional field around you. In the end, presence is not about holding her attention. It is about holding your own. And when you do, she will feel it, not in her mind, but in her soul. Mystery is the second and perhaps the most seductive trigger within the labyrinth of emotional attachment. It is the unseen force that draws a woman closer, compelling her to look deeper, to seek what cannot be fully grasped. Mystery is not deceit. It is depth unspoken. It is the psychological magnetism of a man who does not reveal everything, not because he hides, but because there is always more to discover. A woman's psyche, like nature itself, thrives in the presence of mystery. It responds to contrast, the known and the unknown, safety and uncertainty, revelation and restraint. When everything about a man is laid bare too soon, her imagination withers. But when he reveals himself gradually, layer by layer, her unconscious mind awakens, constructing fantasies, meanings, and narratives around the fragments she perceives. In that process, she invests emotionally, not in what is, but in what might be. Carl Jung would say that mystery activates the archetypal journey of discovery within the feminine unconscious. The anima within a man seeks beauty and meaning. The feminine seeks depth and revelation. When a man embodies mystery, he becomes a mirror for her own uncharted inner world. She does not just want to understand him, she wants to understand herself through him. And this is where true attachment begins, when a woman's curiosity about a man becomes a bridge into her own psyche. But what truly is the essence of mystery? It is the art of revealing truth through silence. It is the tension between authenticity and restraint. The mysterious man does not fabricate stories. He simply does not feel the need to explain himself. His energy communicates more than his words. He speaks less but with precision. He listens with intensity. He carries within him the subtle suggestion that he belongs to a greater narrative, a life of purpose, perhaps struggle, perhaps triumph, that she has only begun to glimpse. Sexually, mystery holds immense power, because it fuels projection. A woman projects her own fantasies onto the man who gives her only fragments to work with. Each silence, each delayed response, each unspoken thought becomes a canvas for her imagination. She begins to fill in the blanks with her own desires, attaching emotionally to an image that is both him and her creation. This is not manipulation, it is psychological resonance. The unconscious loves to complete what is unfinished. Mystery also activates the instinctual polarity between masculine and feminine energy. The masculine embodies stillness, direction, and control. The feminine is movement, emotion, and curiosity. When a man stands calmly within himself, revealing only what he chooses, the feminine is drawn to penetrate that stillness with understanding. She wants to feel what he feels, to explore the unknown world within him. This is not a game, it is a sacred exchange of polarity. It keeps the dynamic alive, the emotional current electric. But mystery cannot exist without authenticity. Many men mistake secrecy for depth, believing that withholding information will make them appear powerful. Yet a false mystery collapses under scrutiny. Real mystery arises from substance, from the man who has truly lived, suffered, learned, and reflected. His silence is not emptiness, it is density. There are stories behind his eyes, not because he hides them, but because he carries them with quiet reverence. The difference is enormous. Pretense repels, but depth fascinates. Philosophically, mystery reminds us that the self is never fully knowable. We are all fragments of something vast, shadows of a greater consciousness. When a man accepts his own complexity, when he stops defining himself in rigid terms and allows the unknown within him to breathe, he becomes mysterious by nature. He no longer tries to be interesting. He simply is interested in life, in ideas, in his own evolution. And that curiosity reflects outward, inviting others, especially women, to join him in that exploration. The mysterious man is not detached or aloof. He engages fully with the present moment, but resists the urge to explain his every thought. His silence invites interpretation. His calm evokes questions. He does not rush to resolve emotional tension, because he understands that tension is the lifeblood of attraction. A woman feels this as a kind of psychic invitation, an emotional puzzle she yearns to solve. Each encounter with him leaves her wondering, what else is there? What lies beneath that calm surface? And in seeking the answer, she binds herself to the search, and therefore to him. To cultivate mystery is to master restraint. You must allow space between your words, between your emotions, between your revelations. Do not give the entire picture at once. Share enough to create connection, but not enough to eliminate curiosity. Let your silence speak. Let your eyes convey what your voice withholds. Let your actions suggest more than they explain. The mystery is not in hiding. It is in allowing her imagination to meet your truth halfway. In the realm of the psyche, mystery is not manipulation. It is evolution. It compels the other to grow, to question, to feel. It is what keeps passion alive after the first touch, what transforms interest into attachment, and attachment into fascination. So remember, never strive to be fully understood. To be completely known is to be ordinary. Leave traces of your inner world unsolved, so that those who meet you must journey to reach you. For what we must journey toward, we never take for granted. And what we can never fully possess, we can never fully forget. Purpose is the third and most stabilizing force in the emotional landscape between man and woman. If presence is the ground she stands on, and mystery is the wind that stirs her imagination, then purpose is the current that carries her trust. A woman's psyche, both conscious and unconscious, seeks to attach not to mere pleasure or appearance, but to direction. To the man whose life is shaped by an inner compass, one who moves through the world with intention. When she senses that his energy is guided by something greater than himself, she feels that to be near him is to be part of a meaningful unfolding. In Jungian terms, purpose is the manifestation of the masculine principle, the logos, the active force that gives structure to chaos. Without it, the masculine becomes lost, aimless, reactive. With it, he becomes a conduit of transformation. A man who lives with purpose doesn't need to prove his worth. His very movement communicates it. The way he speaks, the choices he makes, even his silences, all align with an unseen yet undeniable direction. This creates an energetic field of stability around him, and when a woman steps into that field, she feels not dominated but anchored. Emotionally, women are drawn to men who move towards something beyond comfort. This attraction is not superficial. It is archetypal. The feminine unconsciously seeks to merge with purpose, because purpose represents life's forward motion. When a man drifts without aim, his energy collapses inward. His words may be kind, his gestures affectionate, but his presence feels uncertain like a ship without a rudder. In contrast, when a man carries purpose, every action carries weight. Even his stillness feels alive, directed, intentional. Sexually, purpose is the deepest aphrodisiac. It turns desire from impulse into power. A man who channels his sexual energy into creation, into work, art, vision, transforms lust into vitality. The woman who senses this in him feels the charge of that discipline. His desire for her no longer feels like hunger, but like recognition, an extension of his life force, not an escape from it. Such energy awakens in her the instinct to trust, to open, to follow. It is not submission in the social sense, but a surrender to something that feels divinely ordered. But purpose cannot be faked. It must arise from genuine self-confrontation, from knowing what you stand for and what you will not compromise. Jung taught that the individual must encounter his self, the organizing center of the psyche, before he can act with integrity. A man who has not faced himself cannot lead himself, let alone inspire attachment in another. The absence of purpose breeds emotional confusion. His energy drifts, his boundaries blur, and the feminine senses it immediately. Her unconscious asks, "Can I trust him to hold the storm of life? Can he guide us through uncertainty?" Without purpose, the answer is always no. Philosophically, purpose is not ambition. Ambition seeks validation. Purpose seeks meaning. Ambition comes from the ego's hunger to be seen. Purpose comes from the soul's need to serve. The difference is profound. When a man chases status, a woman may admire him briefly, but she will not attach. When a man serves something larger, whether it be creation, truth, growth, or vision, she feels his devotion not to her, but to life itself. And in that devotion, she feels safe because his energy does not depend on her reaction. It flows from a deeper well. The man of purpose is not immune to doubt, but he moves through it with grace. His direction gives context to his emotions. He can feel fear, desire, and pain without being ruled by them. This balance between emotional intelligence and inner direction creates what might be called psychological gravity. A woman feels it instinctively, the way his energy pulls her inward, not by force but by coherence. In his presence, her emotions too begin to find order. She relaxes not because he controls her, but because he controls himself. Purpose also refines masculine polarity. It prevents desire from becoming dependency and affection from becoming need. When a man has direction, he no longer seeks completion in the feminine. He desires her, but does not require her to define his worth. This paradox, wanting without needing, creates one of the most powerful emotional triggers in the feminine psyche. It tells her, he is whole on his own, yet he chooses me. And that choice becomes sacred, not strategic. To live with purpose, then, is to embody stability in a world of flux. It means aligning your inner vision with your outer action so completely that everything you touch carries coherence. The feminine will feel it without words. Your direction becomes her emotional compass, your integrity her sanctuary. And when she trusts that you are guided by something unshakable, she no longer questions where you stand. She feels it in the rhythm of your every movement. Purpose, like gravity, cannot be seen. It must be felt. It is the invisible order that holds attraction together when beauty fades, when passion cools, when mystery deepens into intimacy. It is the force that keeps her emotionally anchored to you, not because you ask her to stay, but because your path invites her soul to walk beside you. Emotional unpredictability is the fourth trigger, and perhaps the most misunderstood. It does not mean chaos, instability, or manipulation. Rather, it is the dynamic rhythm of a man who contains both fire and stillness, who can move between strength and vulnerability, dominance and tenderness, certainty and curiosity, without losing himself. A woman's psyche is drawn to this paradox because it mirrors the emotional complexity within her own nature. Predictability, while safe, breeds numbness. Unpredictability, when rooted in authenticity, awakens life. Human attraction, at its core, thrives on polarity. The feminine is the ever-shifting current of emotion, the lunar tide that waxes and wanes. The masculine is the solar principle, constant, directed, radiant. Yet even the sun must sometimes yield to clouds, to rain, to dusk. A man who reveals only his control becomes sterile. A man who reveals only his emotion becomes unstable. But the man who can dance between these states with awareness becomes captivating. He embodies what Jung might call the union of opposites, a psyche integrated enough to hold contradiction without collapsing into confusion. When a woman experiences this kind of energy, something deep within her stirs. She senses a man who is not bound by a single emotional note, but who contains an entire symphony. His laughter carries depth, his anger restraint, his silence warmth. She cannot fully predict him, not because he hides, but because he feels deeply and honestly. His unpredictability is not random, it is alive. It tells her that he responds to reality, not to a fixed script. Psychologically, emotional unpredictability touches the feminine unconscious because it evokes the thrill of discovery. Each new emotional tone invites her to feel more of herself. When he surprises her, not with manipulation but with sincerity, he keeps her imagination awake. She finds herself anticipating him, trying to understand him, adapting to his rhythm. And through this dance of uncertainty, emotional attachment deepens. She becomes invested in understanding his inner world, not because he asks her to, but because he keeps revealing new dimensions of it. Sexually, this dynamic becomes magnetic. A man who can alternate between passion and restraint, dominance and surrender, authority and playfulness, awakens the full spectrum of feminine desire. He becomes both safety and danger, protector and provocateur. This duality arouses not just the body but the psyche. It reminds her that pleasure is not found in repetition, but in surprise, in the moment she cannot quite anticipate. The same man who grounds her emotionally can, moments later, unsettle her in the best possible way, challenging her boundaries, stirring her instincts, and awakening the primal tension that lives at the heart of attraction. Philosophically, emotional unpredictability reflects the truth of human nature. We are not static beings. We are contradictions in motion, rational and irrational, light and shadow, divine and animal. Jung's concept of individuation teaches that wholeness is achieved not through perfection, but through integration, through allowing all aspects of the self to coexist harmoniously. A man who represses his emotions to appear strong creates a mask. A man who indulges every emotion loses his structure. But the man who embraces the full range of his inner world without losing his center becomes whole. And wholeness is irresistibly magnetic. This form of emotional depth also redefines power. Most men fear unpredictability because they equate it with weakness. They think consistency means never changing tone, never showing doubt. But true consistency lies in authenticity, not monotony. It means your emotional expressions are real, not rehearsed. When you laugh, it is from the heart. When you express anger, it is clean, free of bitterness or insecurity. When you soften, it is not submission but intimacy. Such emotions, unforced and spontaneous, cut through the noise of pretense. They invite trust because they are unmistakably human. Women, consciously or not, test men for this emotional capacity. When she withdraws affection or challenges your composure, she is not merely provoking you, she is seeking evidence of your depth. Can you remain grounded while feeling? Can you adapt without losing direction? The man who fails becomes reactive or distant. The man who succeeds meets her emotional energy with curiosity, not control. He does not suppress her storm. He stands in it and by standing transforms it into connection. To embody emotional unpredictability is to live as an artist of experience. It means letting your emotional life breathe while maintaining an unshakable core. You do not fear showing her your humanity, nor do you become enslaved by it. You allow your emotions to move through you like music, knowing that what gives a song beauty is not its repetition but its changes in rhythm, tone and silence. A woman attaches deeply to the man who makes her feel alive. And aliveness is born not from comfort, but from contrast. The alternation of light and dark, warmth and chill, closeness and distance. When she never knows exactly which shade of you she will encounter, she cannot drift into complacency. She remains present, awake, emotionally attuned. So do not strive to be consistent in feeling. Strive to be consistent in truth. Let your emotions evolve as life evolves. Express what is real in the moment, and hold it with awareness. When you live this way, you become the rarest kind of man. One who is stable at his core, yet endlessly alive at his edges. And that, more than any practiced charm, is what makes a woman's heart never stop reaching for yours. Validation through contrast. This is the fifth and perhaps the most paradoxical of the emotional triggers. Most people think love and validation are built through endless affirmation, through constant agreement, through soft words that protect the fragile parts of another. But what truly binds two souls is not flattery, it is friction. A woman becomes emotionally attached not when you always comfort her illusions, but when you gently challenge them. She does not bond most deeply with the man who worships her ideal, but with the one who sees her shadow and does not turn away. Human beings by nature seek confirmation of who they believe themselves to be. Yet the feminine psyche in its deepest layers craves evolution. She wants to be seen not only as she is, but as she could become. When a man provides nothing but validation, she may feel adored, but she does not feel moved. Jung understood this duality well. The psyche hungers for wholeness, not comfort. The feminine unconscious is drawn to what expands her, to the man who helps her transcend her own limitations, even when it hurts. This does not mean conflict or criticism for its own sake. It means presence so grounded that your honesty becomes a mirror through which she can see herself more clearly. When you disagree, do it without aggression. When you correct, do it without ego. Your truth, delivered with steadiness and care, becomes a catalyst for her growth. She senses that you are not trying to win, but to awaken. And in that awakening, she feels a profound respect that ordinary validation could never create. Psychologically, this dynamic awakens a primal bond. A woman's attachment deepens when she senses that a man sees all of her, the beauty and the flaws, the light and the shadow, and still remains present. Most men avoid confrontation because they fear rejection. But when you fearlessly reflect her truth back to her, when you can say, "I see this pattern and I won't pretend it isn't there," she experiences a kind of emotional safety that transcends comfort. She realizes she can be fully herself with you, unmasked, imperfect human, and still accepted. That is the deepest form of validation there is. Yet the art lies in balance. To challenge without empathy is cruelty. To validate without truth is weakness. The awakened man holds both in his hands, compassion and confrontation, softness and firmness. He knows when to listen and when to speak, when to yield and when to hold the line. This equilibrium is what makes his presence transformative. He does not shrink from her emotions, nor does he try to control them. He simply reflects what is, with eyes that neither condemn nor flatter. And that gaze becomes unforgettable. A woman might not consciously seek this kind of man, but once she encounters him, her soul recognizes the difference. His presence becomes a crucible where her authenticity is forged. She grows under his awareness, even when it stings. She finds herself drawn back to him, not for comfort, but for truth, for the strange, exhilarating safety of being seen and challenged in equal measure. To live this way requires courage. It means refusing to hide behind easy validation, daring to hold both love and truth in the same breath. It means valuing growth over approval, meaning over momentary peace. Yet in that courage lies the essence of masculine strength, the strength to help another evolve simply by being real. So let your validation carry the weight of truth, and let your truth be tempered by care. Speak not to please, but to awaken. For the woman who feels both accepted and challenged by you will not easily forget your presence, because through you she will have touched the very edge of her own becoming.